Gentlemen and ladies, it is time for some new Big Tuna content. Today I'm on my Enhancement Shaman. Big Tuna is firing back at you with another guide video. You're probably wondering, I released a guide video around like a week ago. What's the difference between this one and my current one that I'm literally talking about right now? Well, Enhancement Shamans they're kind of scattered. New nerfs came out, they don't know what build to go, they don't know if they need to reroll, which is a high question. A pretty predominant question that is being, tossed around nowadays is, do I need to reroll from my Enhancement Shaman? So Big Tuna is here to help you with at least most of the stuff to kind of ease you and keep you on your Enhancement Shaman, because by default we're just better people than everybody else because we play Enhancement Shamans. So cheers to you guys. Also, the guide video I made was pretty shit, I apologize. But we're going to be talking about talents, tier sets, comps, macros, add-ons, PvP talents, all that kind of stuff you can think of. I won't really dabble too much in pretty minuscule, questions like races or anything. Yes, I am racist. Subscribe to Big Tuna, youtube.com/BigTunaGG. But if you guys have any questions that I didn't really confirm or just talk about in this video, again, leave them down in the comments and I will try to answer them to the best of my ability. I can only talk for about 30 minutes without getting a headache, so I gotta wrap this up. Let's go. So this is my current build that I use for everything. It's the build that I use for 3v3s, 2v2s, RBGs, random battlegrounds, skirmishes, any bit of PvP you can imagine, world PvP. I use this build. It's a build I've always used, and I'll dabble in the general talents first. What's good? What's bad? What's the main, what's the main sauce we're talking about? Again, you all know stuff like chain lightning, astral shift, the default stuff. But what's really the eye candy? That's the word I'm looking for. The eye candy here that is kind of confusing or really putting people in a surprise here. Well, let's kind of go down this tree first. We'll talk about these two right here, Astral Bulwark or Plains Traveler. I take Astral Bulwark personally because Astral Shift, it's not a bad defensive, but I mean, 40% wall on a 2-minute cooldown is great and all, but it's like, do you really want a more steady kind of Astral Shift? 30-second reduced cooldown and a 4-second increased duration. So bringing it back to that Shadowlands level, or do you want a bigger wall that's going to be worth it to, survive a lot of goes, which that's one of the main issues with Enhancement Shaman is not necessarily the consistency of when wall is up, it's that wall isn't enough to save you during, windows where people have large bursts. So I personally take a higher damage reduction. So that's just me, I'm just better. But you can also look down here, and I'm also taking Spirit Wolf. Why? This is something you could change out, but I personally like Spirit Wolf because you are sitting in Ghost Wolf a good majority of the times when you need to be aggressive or when you need to do the thing that doesn't exist for Enhancement Shamans, which is Kite. So having the extra movement speed and having a 20% damage reduction just passively, especially when you're going up against, let's say, like rogues, or stealth comps that can just really hurt you in the opener, sitting in that, sitting in Ghost Wolf, having a bit of extra movement speed and having 20% damage reduction definitely can go a long way. I'm also taking stuff like Focused Insight. Casting Flame Shock reduces the mana cost of your next heal by 20% and increases its effectiveness by 30%. Very good. I'll also, again, talk about like stuff you can change around, what points you should take out, what points, can go elsewhere. But I'm just kind of giving you the general layout, and then I'll talk about that. This one is what I want to talk about. It's Capacitor Totem and Guardian's Cudgel. This is probably one of the greatest things that's been added for Enhancement Shamans. As you all know, our CC is very weak. Your only CC is Hex and Cap Totem. Both are really bad. They're the weakest stuns and polymorph-esque, abilities in the game. They're really dog water. So what makes it so special now is that Guardian's Cudgel. Guardian's Cudgel makes it special for two reasons. A, it gives you another stun. So when you place Capacitor Totem down, it'll, occur its normal effect. It'll wait 2 seconds and then it'll stun any targets in a, 8-yard radius? Yeah, 8-yard radius for 3 seconds. Really weak. But Guardian's Cudgel makes it so when that totem fades away, it'll place down another totem. And of course, it's going to be DR'd, so technically it's going to be like a 4-second stun. A 4.5-second stun with Cap Totem. Or if they destroy it, you'll still have another Cap Totem waiting. So let's just kind of put it right here. Watch it. Boom. Pretty animation. And then another Cap Totem comes and takes its place, which is really nice. It honestly makes for a really good stun and CC setup. Why? Because one of the main reasons is that, again, Cap Totem gets killed every single time. If you're RBGs or BGs, doesn't really matter, but when you're in arena and somebody kills your Cap Totem, you don't have stun or a CC for the next minute. So it's like, it's pretty, you know, it's pretty ass. So when you have Guardian's Cudgel to just basically give you another backup, people don't really expect it, and you're 99% guaranteed to get that second stun off. It's really good, really good. Also, I do kind of wish it was changed a little bit. I wish that the second cap totem occurred faster instead of just a normal 2 seconds, maybe be 1 second. That'd be pretty nice. But other stuff worth talking about, you're taking double shields and surging shields, both really good abilities. Earth shield is usually your top healing, just because there are some times where, you know, healing surge is just not really an option. So having increased healing on just the normal earth shields that you get, not that I really wish I always thought it was the actual healing increase that earth shield gives you, but no, surging shield affects the actual healing of earth shield itself. So the extra, each charge you have does, you know, a bit of extra healing, 25% to be matter of fact. But that healing definitely will go a long way, and you will notice it, especially in your recount. It's literally, if you didn't cast a whole lot of healing surges, it's gonna be up there. And if you did cast a lot of healing surges, it's gonna be right up healing surge's ass. It's really good. Surging shields is such a good ability. But the double shields is amazing because lightning shield is actually really good now. It does good damage. It's obviously not damage that can kill targets, but it is just pad damage. So who doesn't like pad damage? You want to see the numbers go up. But it is good because you're just constantly, if you're facing melee, which is obviously the greatest weakness to enhancement shamans, which is other melee just being better than you, you have certain shields which will basically make it so you have a non-stop funnel of guaranteed maelstrom. So if you're getting unlucky with procs, or you're not getting Wind Furies, you're not getting Stormbringers, whatever, maelstrom will just feed through your lightning shield, and you know, it's just a really good ability. Surging shield is definitely a key highlight in the general talents tree. Earthgrab Totem is really good. Earthgrab Totem, defensively, offensively, is probably your best totem in your toolkit by far. Of course, Grounded Totem takes number one, but Earthgrab Totem is just so good. It is a little wonky though, because obviously with a lot of totems, the pulses between each totems are just, you can't really predict them. So sometimes you will root somebody, or you will place a totem, like let's say if this guy's running at me and I'll try to root his charge, sometimes you'll still get the charge off because my totem will be on like a pulse tick. So it's really awkward sometimes, but overall it's still a really good ability. Totemic Surge is something you can or can't run. I personally like it because just having reduced cooldown on Tremor Totem, Capacitor Totem, Earthbind Totem, like again 26 seconds, and other totems that we'll talk about, it's honestly really good. 4 seconds may not seem a lot to you, but when you're not really paying attention to time, and you're just paying attention to living and trying to do damage, it seems like that 4 seconds is like 20 seconds. Like it's pretty amazing. You're also taking Healing Stream Totem and Swirling Currents. This is something you can run without. I'll show you another route you can go. But I personally just like having a lot of heals. I usually just press Healing Stream Totem by default. I don't really wait for certain windows where I need it. I pretty much just have Healing Stream Totem on global every single time. Those 3 Swirling Currents, you never know when your HP is about to drop, so just having those just ready in the chamber is just really, really nice. 25% increased healing on your healing surges. You have so many modifiers already, so you know, you get big healing surges. I'm hitting like 250k crits. It's pretty damn nice. So overall, that's kind of like the main showcase. Like all this stuff like Nature's Fury, Winds of Valkyrie, I don't really need to talk too much about it because there's nothing to talk about it. It's not really that amazing. So no really real information about that. But the second route you can go is taking out Totemic Surge, which I know really does suck. And I personally don't run this route, but it is another option you can go. You can go into Improved Lightning Bolt, Thunderstorm, and Lightning Lasso, or Thundershock, depending on what you're facing. And you can put this talent point anywhere. This is most likely going to be your arena type build. So of course, even though Hex is pretty dog, you're going to want Hex. You can also take a point out of Focus Insight and take it into Cleanse Spirit if you want to. But this is kind of like what I run for arena sometimes. So your main focus down here is you get Lightning Lasso and you get Thunderstorm. The Improved Lightning Bolt doesn't really matter. Even after the nerf to Elemental Blast, 15% reduced damage. Elemental Blast still does more damage than Lightning Bolt. Pretty sad. But you get Thunderstorm and you also get Lightning Lasso. Thunderstorm is obviously just really good, not only for yourself, but of course getting, you know, melee off of your healers, and certain maps, Blade's Edge Arena, Eye of the Storm, Twin Peaks, anywhere where terrain can be a very good aspect. Thunderstorm obviously shines very well in that. Lightning Lasso or Thundershock. Lightning Lasso is really good. The only reason why I don't like it is just because it's not that it's, I personally don't like it because it's kind of awkward with Enhancement Shaman, because when you're not dealing damage, you're not playing your character. You're doing damage to do more damage, basically. And when you're resting as Enhancement Shaman, it feels bad. Like when you don't get any procs, when you're just sitting there pressing Storm, you know, like waiting for your procs, Storm Strike's on cooldown, you know, all your other main rotation abilities are on cooldown. How does it feel? It feels pretty weak. It feels not good. So pressing Lightning Lasso, yeah, I'm starting this target, I'm moving, I'm getting a bit of damage out there, but what I'm also not doing is I'm not generating Maelstrom Weapon to heal or to do damage. So that's why I don't really like Lightning Lasso. But of course, it has its niche situations. Lightning Lasso behind a pillar, it's always been the kind of strat. So definitely really nice there. You also have Thundershock. Thundershock is really good. I personally love Thundershock against casters because that's where it mainly shines in. I don't know why I said personally. It's just a by default great aspect against casters. Again, adding disruption to just cast. You already do pretty well against casters. Grounding Totem, short Wind Shear, you know. So Thundershock just being another disruptive cooldown to, again, if you don't have Interrupt and wow, a Warlock's casting Demonic Tyrant on you, that's scary. Or hey, a Priest is casting Mind Games, you don't have Grounding Totem or Wind Shear, you have Thunderstorm, which is 30-second cooldown. So matches very well with your Grounding Totem. So very, very good, very good. Now, one thing I do want to mention here is a lot of the talents I'm not taking. So let's kind of take my talents back here. The talents I actually really do like and enjoy. So get this stuff out of here, put that back, put that back, put this back. So I'll talk about some stuff here, and it's talents like, you know, why they're not really picked, why they're just not really that useful. This stuff is very minuscule. Like if you really want it, you can take it. Increase Legion Avoidance, increase Fire, Frost, Nature damage by 3%, or sorry, Fire and Frost damage by 3%. I mean, if you really want it, I'm not really there to tell you no. It's not bad. It's just passive damage increase. Cool. Spearwalker's Grace, you don't cast at all, and do you really want to get a casted, you know, an on-the-move cast of Hex? Like, is that really worth it to you? But the actual ones that are really kind of captivating to the eye, that are, you know, you might ask yourself why you're not taking that. Stuff like Ancestral Guidance is something that I always want it to be good, but it's just really not. Now, if you're facing casters or like kind of like Rot Cleaves, let's say Unholy DKs or Afflocks, S-Priests, Ancestral Guidance can do a lot of healing. I will say that. It will prevent you from using Healing Surges and more, because you're just kind of healing through your rotation. But that delay is only like at least like 2 Healing Surges, you know, from being pressed because you have Ancestral Guidance. It's not bad, but it's just not as good as it needs to be, unfortunately. 25% of the damage and healing you do is converted to healing 3 nearby injured party or raid members. It's not like, it's like a Walmart version of Avenging Crusader for Holy Paladins, but not. It's in its own right, it's in its own field, but I really wish this was good. If it was 50%, I think that would be too strong, because just classes that already can just heal through the rotation are already just really annoying to fight against already, for your warriors. So I just wish it was changed. 25%, it's not really that high, and it has some throughput, but when they're really popping their burst, like not just like normal Unholy DK damage, normal, you know, Afflock damage, I'm talking about their full send burst, and Ancestral Guidance is just going to get blown away. It's not enough to heal you. Totemic Focus is good and not good. It's good for the increased duration of Earthbind Totem and Earthgrab Totem, you know, by 5 seconds, pretty nice. But what I really wished was better was the increased radius of totem effects, because that radius is only like 1% that you get from putting 2 points. Putting 2 points into your Totemic Focus, and 1.5 extra yards on my Earthbind Totem. Is that really worth it? No. Like, your totems have just such like a really bad range that 1 yard is not going to cut it. 1 yard is not going to, it's going to like be like this, like from here to like there. That's where they're going to get rooted. It's just not that amazing. And of course, the increased duration to your Tremor and Healing Stream Totem, definitely very good there. But the radius is what I really wished was the shining factor. Now, if you're gonna take this route, which you do take sometimes, most for like RBGs, you know, RBGs and such. But if you are taking this route, Stone Skin Totem is really good. And since you're taking Toteming Surge, if you don't really want to take certain stuff that you can switch out, like maybe take a point out of Focus Insight or Surging Shields, these two talents can work without 1 point. Like, you know, they're just that good on its own that they don't really need 2 points into them. But if you want to go something like this, Toteming Surge combined with Stone Skin Totem, super good. 10% reduced physical damage by default for 15 seconds on a 26-second cooldown. That is, it may not seem a lot to you, but when you really think about how the pace of the game goes and how long drawn out certain games can be, that extra 10% damage reduction goes a long way. Again, it may not seem like a whole lot, and combined with like the damage, the reduced cooldown and just 10% on its own, it may not seem like, you know, amazing to you, but this can be your saving grace a lot of times. You know, 26-second cooldown, 10% reduced physical damage for 15 seconds. You're gonna have it back up before it comes off, before the duration's over. It's just so good to have. It's amazing. It is absolutely amazing. So yeah, other stuff, Tournament Projection, Tournament Projection is all right. It's not anything that's like super amazing for Enhancement Shaman. If, let's say, your Tremor Totem is all the way like over here, like is, you know, obviously near me, and you're just out of range of it, am I really going to use Totem Projection to get you, just to get you out of that fear? Like, am I really going to waste, you know, another global on that? Probably not. It's just not. It's not like a saving grace or anything. It's not super worth it. Totem Recall and, you know, Creation Core, Call the Elements, not something super useful for Enhancement Shaman. The only main totems that are just like worth calling of the elementing is stuff like Tremor Totem. So, like, are you really gonna waste a 2-minute cooldown on Tremor Totem to, you know, to block one more fear than to just, you know, to like have like, let's say, a bit of extra healing through a, you know, not a bit of extra healing, a lot of extra healing through your Healing Stream Totem? It's, you know, it's like, yeah, I don't think it's worth it that much. So yeah, go with the flow. No one runs this. If you run this, how does not having extra healing or extra damage or extra any of this stuff doing for you? Cleanse Spirit and Hex, I did talk about this a little bit, but the reason why I don't run this is because, I mean, when as Cleanse Curse, there are very few DPS cleanses that actually help you, and Cleanse Spirit is not one of them. So remove all curse effects. Yeah, I could remove Curse of Exhaustion, I could remove Curse of Tongues, I could remove Curse of whatever other curse there is, but is that really saving me throughout these games? Not really. But you can run it. It's a good ability. It's just something that, like, I just don't really care for. It's me. I'm the problem, as some might say. And then Hex, or short cooldown. Nobody uses Embezzlement. Voodoo Mastery. I just don't like Hex. Hex is just one of the weakest. It's the weakest CC in the game. Hex, 30-second. It has the longest cooldown, and you have complete control of your character. So yeah, you could force people into some awkward situations, specifically healers. You hex them, and if they wanted to break, they're gonna have to go into, you know, into melee range, where there's just a lot of cleave happening. You can't force them into certain positions, but like, is that super worth it, or do you want to get damage out there? You know, instead of wasting instead of putting you in a position where you're casting and you get locked out and you can't use Elemental Blast or half of your abilities. You know, you pick your poison. So that's the general talents. Now we'll move on to the Enhancement Shaman talent. So this is the main sauce right here, okay? This is what I run. This is what I run for every single PvP scenario. And I get a lot of questions about this. Why you're not putting points into this? You know, hey, I'm switching from my you know, blast from my spell build to this build. Is there any other routes you can go? This is what I run always. This is a build I've always seen the most value in. You know, especially previous, you'll have people like Clack tell you that, you know, Doom Winds or Wind Fury is not worth it. Blast build is just better. I'm not saying they're wrong. They just don't understand what's happening here. I'm the only shaman who runs Storm Strike build. Why? Because I'm the only one who sees the true value in it. Stuff like Blast build, or stuff that focuses on stuff like your Elemental Blast, where your spell damage is so one-sided, and when that track gets offset, it's hard to kind of get back into the into the motion. Whereas this build, it goes in a complete circle. There's no out of loop you can go. It's a full complete circle. Every one of these abilities bleeds into the next ability. You're doing damage to get more damage. You're doing damage to get more procs. Everything works together. So we'll kind of go from the top to the bottom. All right, from knees to toes, shoulders, knees, and toes. So we'll go right here. We'll start here. Unruly Winds. Unruly Winds itself is probably one of the main core aspects of this build. Why? 100% chance to get a third Wind Fury. Not only are you getting extra damage through Forceful Winds, you're also having that extra Wind Fury attack. You're also having a higher increased chance to generate a Maelstrom Weapon. And with this build, the reason why this build is so good is because, as I said, everything just bleeds in together. But one of the main reasons why this build just excels way better than anything else is because your Maelstrom generation is so high. Maelstrom generation is so incredibly high. There are very few windows where your Maelstrom generation is like sitting at like 3 or 2 and you're not getting a lot of procs, which of course those windows do suck, but there are very few times that really happens. So having Unruly Winds, you're just getting more damage out there through just your normal auto attacks, and of course when you get lucky with Storm Strike hits, when you get those a really good Wind Fury proc and a good Storm Flare proc, it's just higher chances to generate even more Maelstrom Weapon and do a lot of damage. So Unruly Winds is just an amazing aspect to this build. You have stuff like, this is a question I do get a lot, is why are you taking Ice Strike and Hailstorm if you're not taking like Fire Nova or Hailstorm? It's just for extra rotation. Swirling Maelstrom works with Ice Strike because so it makes Ice Strike generate 1 Maelstrom Weapon, and of course it's another ability, so it has its own chance to proc Wind Fury, and Wind Fury strikes 3 times. So max you're gonna get out of Ice Strike is like potentially like 3 Maelstrom. So that's just really good, and that 3 Maelstrom usually happens like 70% of the time. So Ice Strike and Swirling Maelstrom just by itself is just really good. Swirling Maelstrom is a really good ability, and of course it gives you a bit of extra damage on your Frost Shock. Very nice, very nice, very nice. So we'll kind of go down here a little bit more. You're taking Crash Lightning and Converging Storms. Converging Storms is one of the 2 center focuses of the build. Your main 2 sauces. Unruly Winds is kind of like the steady, like, okay, this is like a really good ability, and it's something that definitely benefits the build a lot. But Converging Storms is one of your 2 main aspects of this build. This is where your damage comes from. Each target hit by your Crash Lightning increases the damage of your next Storm Strike by 25%, up to a maximum of 6 stacks. This is amazing. When Crash Lightning hits multiple targets, that damage increase from Converging Storms is going to ramp up so hard. Let's just hit these guys. So this is just 5 targets. My next Storm Strike is going to do 125% increased damage. That is big. On a 11-second cooldown, that is massive. 125% increased damage. And that's not your only Storm Strike modifier. That's the thing. So ideally with this build, 3 targets is kind of like what you're looking for in terms of where you want to be. So of course any targets work. 1 target, 2 targets, 3 targets, whatever really works. But 3 targets and above is really what you're looking for to get that really good meaty beefy damage. Converging Storms is where most of that damage comes from. You go down to Feral Spirits and you see we're putting full points into all this. You're not taking Elemental Spirits. Another question I get, why are you not taking Elemental Spirits or Thorm's Invocation? I thought that's where all your damage comes from. No, not with this build. Your normal wolves give you 15% increased physical damage. Again, all you're doing with this build is doing physical damage, so there's no point in having 20% increased element damage if I'm not really taking any element enhancers. So these 2 abilities, Elemental Assault is kind of like the same with Unruly Winds, where it's like it has its role. Elemental Assault makes it so. Sorry, I'm kind of something on my chair. It was just being weird. You have Elemental Assault. Again, passive 20% increased damage to your Storm Strike, 100% chance to generate 1 Maelstrom stack. It's great. It's amazing. You don't have any on-demand Maelstrom generation besides Ice Strike, and that's it. So Maelstrom generation just comes through procs and comes through RNG, through Wind Furies and your other special attacks. So having just by default one Maelstrom through your Storm Strikes, especially when you're getting really good Wind Fury procs, and you're also just getting, I don't even have a Wind Fury active, and you're also just getting Storm Flurry procs, Wind Fury procs, it's just amazing. And that Maelstrom generation, another reason why is because Elemental Assault, that Maelstrom generation is going to go even higher. Higher and higher, amazing. And of course, the damage of it is really nice. Witch Doctor's Ancestry. Your chance to generate Maelstrom Weapon is increased by 4%, and whenever you do generate Maelstrom Weapon, you are going to reduce the cooldown of your Feral Spirits by 2 seconds. Very, very good. Again, with this build, you're getting the maximum amount of Maelstrom generation you can possibly get compared to any other build. So Witch Doctor's Ancestry plays a big role in this because, again, your Feral Spirits are just always going to be one of your greatest abilities no matter what build you play. So getting those bad boys off cooldown faster is always going to be amazing. Legacy of the Frost Witch. This is your second greatest thing about this build. Converging Storms is your number 1. Legacy of the Frost Witch is your number 2. Legacy of the Frost Witch. Consuming 10 stacks of Maelstrom Weapon will reset the cooldown of Storm Strike and increase the damage of your physical abilities by 25% for 5 seconds. So not only does you're going to have this buff up pretty much all the time, because you're generating just crazy amounts of Maelstrom just by pressing your buttons with Unruly Winds, Storm Flurry, Crash Lightning, and you're also getting a lot of Stormbringer procs with this build, more than the average. You're also just getting pretty much guaranteed resets with your Legacy of the Frost Witch. And here's the thing, Legacy of the Frost Witch, it's not just every time. You don't have to consume 10 stacks every time. No, you see here, my Legacy of the Frost Witch is at 7. So if I just generated like three here with Ascendance proc, if I just generated 3 and I just used it, it's gonna give me the buff either way. So you don't have to use it at 10 stacks all the time. So when you're lacking procs and you just don't have any other abilities off cooldown, again, you just get a quick reset and hopefully you can keep that train going. So 20% increased physical damage, reduced reset cooldown in your Storm Strike. Again, it's just amazing. Now we're gonna wrap up here in a second here. Ascendance procs are always just nice. Ascendance on demand just does a lot of damage, but you're also getting static accumulation. While Ascendance is active, generate 2 Maelstrom weapon stacks every 1 second. Here's where I'm going to talk about everything bleeds into each other. All right, here's what I mean by this. It's not linear like a blast build. It doesn't go one direction. This goes all around. This is a circle. Maelstrom generation. Maelstrom generation affects what? Your Witch Doctor's Wolf Bones. It's Wolf Bones. I'm going to constantly call it that. Witch Doctor's Wolf Bones. All right? What happens when you get Feral Spirits off cooldown? You're not only getting passive 15% increased physical damage, you're also getting more Maelstrom generation through your Feral Spirits because they generate a stack of Maelstrom every 3 seconds for the next 15 seconds. What happens when you're constantly generating Maelstrom? You're going to get Legacy of the Frostwitch buffs constantly. And what happens when you get the Legacy of the Frostwitch stacks? You're getting increased physical damage of all your abilities, and you're resetting the cooldown of your Storm Strikes. What happens when you get more Storm Strikes? You're also getting more Wind Fury procs. Oh, sorry, that too. But you're also getting Ascendance procs. Now, what happens when you get Ascendance procs? Not only are you getting more damage with just normal Wind Strikes, you're also generating Maelstrom with static accumulation. What happens when you generate Maelstrom? You're getting Feral Spirits off cooldown even faster. And what happens when you get Feral Spirits off cooldown even faster? You're getting more Maelstrom and more damage. Like, everything bleeds into each other. And of course, normal stuff like Elemental Assault, just being there as well. Everything bleeds together, from your Unruly Winds to your Storm Strikes, to your Storm Flurries, to your Ascendances, to your Legacy of the Frostwitch, to your Feral Spirits, to your Crash Lightnings, to your Stormbringers. Like, everything bleeds into each other. It's amazing. And what happens when you get constant Stormbringer procs? You're getting a little bit of extra damage through Storm Blast, which honestly is really bad. But I just wanted to mention it, a little bit. Everything in this build affects each other. It affects something to make something happen. It is amazing how this build interacts with every one of these abilities, every single one. Again, let me just repeat it again. You're getting a maximum amount of Maelstrom generation. And the more Maelstrom generation you get, the more Legacy of the Frostwitches you get. The more Legacy of the Frostwitches you get, the more Storm Strike you get. The more Storm Strike you get, the more Ascendance procs you get. The more Ascendance procs you get, the more Maelstrom you get. And it just repeats the cycle again. through your Feral Spirits. The Feral Spirits is kind of like your core, you know, like it's like the center focus, and then branching off from that, it's your Converging Storms buff and your Legacy of the Frost Witch. And then branching off from that is your Storm Strikes, you know, and your Ascendancy procs. Everything affects each other. That's why this build is so amazing. And when you have Doom Winds up, that's like just, you know, 8 seconds of just guaranteed damage, guaranteed procs, guaranteed Maelstrom generation. Everything that affects each other is going to be ramped up by 100% basically when you have Doom Winds up. So, you know, that's why Doom Winds is amazing. Not only the damage of it is obviously really good, but Doom Winds just accelerates everything. Your Legacy of the Frost Witch, your Feral Spirits, your Witch Doctor's Ancestry, your Ascendance proc, you know, chances to proc. You know, it accelerates everything. That's why Doom Winds is so good. Now, there are some stuff I'm going to talk about here. Why not take Thorns Invocation? Well, there's no really real reason to. It obviously does a lot of damage. It does really good damage, but the only reason why with this build you're taking Ascendance is because, again, it does a good damage, but you're mainly getting it for that static accumulation. Thorns Invocation is still good, and it's still passive damage, but like, what do you really want to give up? You want to give up Legacy of the Frost Witch? Okay, but you're only going to have 5% increased extra damage. That's pretty bad. Okay. You want to give up Witch Doctors? Well, that's... Witch Doctors is like your core, like, you know, 1 second. Although it doesn't seem like a big loss, it's a big loss, let me tell you. So, what do you want to get rid of? Elemental Assault? You're going to notice when Storm Strike just is not, you know, generating that Maelstrom, and your rotation just feels really weak. So, all of this... The reason why this build is amazing is because it's the most perfect balance between rotation and burst. That's what this build excels in. It has points in each aspect: burst, damage, sustain, and it's perfect. The perfect number. So really offsetting that for, you know, a little chance, quote unquote, to get more, you know, a burst windows or, you know, anything of the sort. It's gonna screw up the whole build. This is why the build works, because of these talents. Now, we'll talk about this. You know, it's either Storm Blast, Elemental Weapons, or Windfury Totem. This is like, you know, you pretty much just pick whatever one you want. Windfury Totem, if you're playing with like melee that actually benefit from Windfury, like let's say Rogues from their main Gauche, or Rep Addons with their Zeal and their Art of War resets, or Arms Warriors with their extra raid generation from Windfury Totem, then I guess it's cool. Elemental Weapons, passive 5% increased damage. I mean, do you really want 5% increased damage? You be the boss. It's good, but I mean, you know, since I'm constantly getting a Stormbringer proc, Storm Blast, you know what? It's picking the best from the worst, and I just pick Storm Blast. So that's just me. 25% extra nature damage through your next Storm Strike. Or sorry, your Stormbringer Storm Strike. So it's whatever. You pick your poison. Crashing Storm's not that great. It's honestly pretty interesting because it works well with like your Ride Lightning. So Ride Lightning, whenever there's multiple enemies near you, you'll cast Chain Lightning. So that Chain Lightning is only gonna just go further. So that's also another option. But yeah, you're not really touching Primordial Wave or any of this stuff. No Lava Lash stuff. This is all you're taking. This is the build. I don't change out of this at all. PvP talents are pretty standard. Your main focus or your main talents you're looking for BGs, this is what I run all the time. Static Field Totem, Ride the Lightning, Swelling Waves. Swelling Waves is by default, it's a lock-in, you're never changing out of this, never, ever, ever. Static Field Totem, because my guild is usually, you know, all melee, so just rounding everybody up and just having everybody just cleave. Anybody who's caught in Static Field Totem is dying. There's not even like a 90% chance they live, they're dying. There's no way. So Ride Lightning is just extra damage you can get and just help with Maelstrom generation a little bit. So, you know, this is what I take for RBGs and just normal battlegrounds. But for arena and your actual like try hard talents, sometimes you can take Static Field Totem, like against melee, or anything where something can die in the opener. Static Field Totem is really good just to kind of secure the maximum amount of pressure and they can't really get away. So very nice. Grounding Totem is always going to be a lock-in against any casters. Paladins, if you want a Grounding Hodge, but any casters, Grounding Mind Games, Soul Rot, you know, Chaos Bolts, Lava Bursts, especially Lava Bursts, Jesus, it's really good. So Grounding Totem is always going to be one of your saving graces. So these season wins, it's awkward sometimes. Let's say if you interrupt a healer and that healer is a Holy Paladin, and okay, cool, I'm taking 15% reduced holy damage. They're playing with a Destruction Warlock that does not do holy damage, so it's like, okay, sometimes it's awkward, sometimes it's really good. 15% reduced damage on a certain spell school is sometimes really nice, but I don't really use it because, like I said, it's kind of awkward a lot of the times. Unleashed Shield is very good, especially in 2v2. Unleashed Shield is very good. I didn't like Unleashed Shields at first because I guess I got hella unlucky with it, but every time I used it, my shields would fall off. So like my lightning shield or my earth shield. So, and I was like, what the hell is this? But I guess like I just got really unlucky with like purges or, you know, just a time up on my shields. So it just disappeared. And I always thought Unleashed Shield did that, but it doesn't. It doesn't consume your shields, which is really good. So the way Unleashed Shield works is, again, you can read it. Lightning Shield knocks enemies away or knocks a enemy away. If you have Earth Shield, it'll root the enemy, and if you have Water Shield, it'll summon a whirlpool that reduces the damage and healing in that whirlpool by 50%, no matter whose team you're on. So Unleashed Shield is very good because you're taking Elemental Orbit, which is really good. So you're getting both. You're getting both Earth Shield and Lightning Shield. So I'll probably showcase some clips right here, but since you're taking both of them, it'll pretty much proc your first shield, most likely being your Earth Shield or your Lightning Shield. It'll knock them away, and then it'll root them for 4 seconds. So it's just really good to separate healers from their DPS or separate the DPS from the healers, vice versa. It's just really good. It helps relieve pressure. It's pretty much like a better but not better version of Thunderstorm, because Thunderstorm, if you knock them away, they could just charge back. Like, it's not like a big deal. But if you're using Unleashed Shield, you knock them away and they can't come back for the next 4 seconds. That's why Unleashed Shield is just better. And it's on the same cooldown. So Unleashed Shield, very good. Counter-Strike Totem, people just kill it. Like, it doesn't do a lot of damage. The reason why, it's pad damage. You have to know the difference between pad damage and kill damage. If you're facing like DKs, you want to troll them a bit and you just have them kill themselves with Counter-Strike Totem, because most likely they're not going to realize it through a bomb limb. You can, but it's just not super worth it. Skyfury Totem, you don't have spell damage in this build, so it's like, so Skyfury Totem is kind of worthless. Ethereal Form is sometimes useful against, let's say, pure physical damage classes. So Windwalker Monks, Warriors. If you take Ethereal Form and you take Plains Traveler, because you can't really take Astral Bulwark with it, you pretty much get like a 15-second or 4 to 5 second Ethereal Form, or sorry, 30-second Ethereal Form that lasts 15 seconds or so. So it's just like you pop Ethereal Form and you're going up against a Warrior or a Windwalker Monk and you are pretty much immortal. And it's very fun for like low rated games as well, because they don't understand what's happening. So, but of course, higher rated games, people will just like, okay, this guy's immune, so I'm just gonna attack his buddy, or I'm gonna attack his healer. So it's good sometimes, but it's good for like openers. So if you want them to just switch off you can take this, but like, is that really, are you really gonna give that up over just normal wall for 50%? Like, some again, it's very niche, but yeah. Thunder Charge, it's okay. The reason why I don't like Thunder Charge is because of the way it works. So when you use it, the cooldown of your abilities will recover by 30%. Increase 30%. So your cooldowns will recover faster. However, when that 10 seconds is over, it'll go back to its normal cooldown. I wish it just shaved off the cooldown immediately like that. Like, I wish that, kind of like Shifting Powers, but from Walmart. So that's what I wished, but it doesn't work like that, so it's not super amazing. Shamanism, some classes this is good with, but like there's not really, like 20% haste is obviously really amazing, but sometimes it's really just overkill, because there's not really that many classes that really benefit from haste, and you are only locked into like 2 comps. So Ret Enhance, Warrior Enhance. So in haste isn't really their primary like stat. Of course, it is still good. It's a helping hand, but like it's not really going to give them, more kill potential. It's going to help them out, but like how do I say this? It's just not worth it, I guess, sometimes. But if you just kind of want to cheese and kill something in the opener, that 20% increased haste is going to help you. But again, the main question is like, what are you willing to switch out? That's the thing. So, and then of course Static Field Totem is really amazing. So by default, I run Static Field Totem, Counter Attack Totem, and Swelling Waves by default. Or the other option is Static Field Totem, Grounding Totem, Only Shield. Those are like the two sets I usually run. I don't really touch any other of these talents. Redlining doesn't really work in Arena. So, and yeah, but for BGs, this is what I'm taking. Oops, this is what I'm taking. Yeah, there we go. That's the route I'm taking. Swelling Waves, Static Field Totem, and Redlining. And the next one, I hate talking about this. I hate talking about all these, to be honest, because some of these are, you know, common sense to me, so I don't really like talking about them too much, but it is a question, and I have to answer it. It's rotation. I will say this every single time, to the day I die. Every time I get a rotation question in the comments, I will tell them this. Press anything that glows. You don't have a dedicated rotation as Enhancement Shaman. You're pressing anything that glows. You are a proc chance cooldown based rotation. Very different from normal Paladin, Crusader Strike, Blade of Justice, Incinerate, Chaos Bolts, Demon Blades into, you know, Chaos Strikes and, you know, Death Strikes, or Blade Dance, sorry, Obliterate into Frost Strikes, stuff like that. You're very different. So everything is procs. But, I will give you a bit of help. So what do you do here? What do you do here? What do you do here? Okay, what's your main approach to this? So when you're getting in combat, this is what I always do. So let me just flame shock this guy just to get my PvP stats going. So what do you always do? I always pop my Feral Spirits in the opener. Your Feral Spirits are going to do damage, and they're going to help generate Maelstrom Weapon, and of course, they give you 15% increased damage. So I'm going to go for a Storm Strike. Okay, Ascendance proc, that's cool and all. I'm going to wait for this to be over, because I kind of want to showcase what you actually do. My Feral Spirits are out, cool. What else am I doing? You're gonna press Storm Strike. Okay, I don't have my Storm Strike's on cooldown. Unfortunate. I don't have Maelstrom Weapon either to use a Healing Surge or to use a Elemental Blast. So what am I really doing here? Well, you have some options. You have Crash Lightning or you have Ice Strike. I usually, you know, use Ice Strike all the time. I usually use it on GCD, but obviously if you have stuff like Storm Strike or, you know, Elemental Blast at 10 Maelstrom stacks available, of course you want to prioritize that. But let's say this is off cooldown. Let's get my stuff off cooldown again. No proc on Stormbringer. Cool. I'm gonna use something like Crash Lightning. Cool. I got a proc of Stormbringer. All right. I'm gonna use that. Cool. I'm gonna use my Maelstrom Spenders now. All right. I'm gonna constantly just get my Storm Strike out. Okay. Unfortunate. Storm Strike's off cooldown. But guess what? I also have Crash Lightning and Ice Strike available. So I'm gonna Ice Strike. I'm gonna use Frost Shock as well because it gives me damage increase. I'm gonna Blast. Just constantly doing the damage. Okay, I have some abilities off cooldown, but I have Crash Lightning that is off cooldown, so I'm gonna use Crash Lightning. Cool, I'm at 10 Maelstrom stacks. Get my Elemental Blast out there. Elemental Blast, 10 Maelstrom stacks. It's gonna give me Legacy of Frost Witch, which is gonna reset the cooldown of my Storm Strike. All right. It's hard to explain, but it's so simple to understand because, again, all you're doing is pressing anything that glows. All right. If your Storm Strike is glowing, you're pressing Storm Strike. If your Maelstrom Weapon, if your Spenders are glowing, your Elemental Blast or Lightning Bolt, you're gonna press it, but at 10 Maelstrom stacks. All right. So if you have like 8 Maelstrom Weapon or like 3 Maelstrom Weapon, and your Storm Strike's on cooldown, what are you pressing? You're pressing Crash Lightning. Crash Lightning strikes multiple targets, which means it has higher chance to get you Stormbringer procs, and of course has higher chances to generate you Maelstrom Weapon. But of course, it is a chance, so you still can get cucked. And then what happens when you Crash Lightning and Storm Strike's still on cooldown and you're not at 10 Maelstrom stacks, and you can press your Ice Strike, and 9 times out of 10 you'll be at 10 Maelstrom stacks. All right, you'll be at 10 Maelstrom stacks. You get your Feral Spirits out there, Storm Strike's on cooldown, and use Crash Lightning. I'm at 10 Maelstrom stacks. Storm Strike's off cooldown again. Got a proc, cool. I'm gonna use Ice Strike. Use a Frost Shock. Got a Flame Shock up there as well. And then you're just kind of weaving everything in. Amazing. My shocks are off cooldown, cool. And then you have this window where everything's on cooldown. Your Storm Strike's on cooldown, your shocks are on cooldown, you don't have 10 Maelstrom stacks, you don't have Crash Lightning. What do? You simply wait. You either wait to get win for your procs, to continue the rotation and get up to 10 Maelstrom stacks, or you can use your Maelstrom a bit early. Why? Because, let me actually use it again, sorry. Shit. Damn it. Use your Maelstrom a bit early. Why? Because, like I said earlier, your Legacy of the Frost Witch does not have a timer. So you saw I used my Elemental Blast. My Legacy of the Frost Witch is at 7. So if I use 3, let me just build up to like 3 Maelstrom Stacks here. If I use these Maelstrom Stacks right now, I use it on this, it's gonna give me my Storm Strike reset. Now obviously you don't want to use it on 3, you want to use it on standard by 5 or anything. But just note, you can use your blasts or your lightning bolts or your healing surges a bit early just to get your Storm Strike reset. All right, that's an option in case you're not getting any procs, which is unfortunate. Ice Strike. All right, 10 Maelstrom Stacks, cool. Animal Blast, Sentence proc, cool. 2 Sentence procs back to back, very nice. Sentence procs gonna generate the Maelstrom, so I don't really need to focus on Maelstrom weapon too much. All right, amazing. Get my wolves out there again. A little blessed. Something again. All right, some stuff is kind of going on cooldown, but some stuff is also coming off cooldown. All right, boom, 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 and boom. Pressing anything that's off cooldown. All right, that's all you are doing. But of course, you are going to have windows where you're going to have nothing to press. So there's not really that much that you can do to speed that up. You know what I'm saying? So again, it's a simple answer, and it's a tough question, but it's a very simple solution. It's press anything that glows. So I want to talk about tier sets here because tier sets are important. So let's go to a more adventure guide here. Let's see what's cooking up with the tier sets. If you wonder how to check it, you go to dungeons, you go to Shadowlands, you pick loot. And there's a helicopter flying above my head, but I do not care. You pick loot, and you get to see some options here. So the elements of infused earth. All right, what's good here? What is good for Enhancement Shaman? So you read here, your 2 set. Storm Strike increases the damage of your next fire, frost, or nature spell by 10% and causes it to generate 1 additional stack of Maelstrom weapon. Okay, cool. Your 4 set consuming Maelstrom weapon stacks increases your haste by 1% per stack for 4 seconds. So is this worth it? Is it really worth it? To be honest, I can't answer that question because I don't know. But from really what I'm seeing, it's just not worth it in the least bit. The increased damage on your next fire, frost, or nature spell. Again, you're not really doing magic damage with this build. But of course it is just passive damage through your elemental blast. So it is cool. But 10% and causing it to generate 1 maelstrom. You're constantly weaving in your frost shocks and your flame shocks. So it's going to be like, sometimes it's going to be a waste of a buff. So unless you're really just sitting on it to get your elemental blast, and like if that's something you want to do, go ahead. But sometimes it just doesn't really seem worth it to me. And the weird thing is causing it to generate 1 additional stack of Maelstrom weapon. WoW does this a lot of times where they feel like something isn't enough, so they'll kind of add like a secondary effect. Even if it doesn't make any sense, they'll still add it for like certain abilities. So for example, Pharaoh lunge at an enemy as a ghost wolf, biting them to deal 912 physical damage. There are just secondary effects like that Blizzard adds just to add them, and causing it to generate 1 additional Maelstrom weapon is one of them. So don't really understand where that's coming from. The 4 set is 1% haste per stack for 4 seconds. It doesn't say how many stacks this can go up, so I don't know if it's 10 or if it's 5. So I don't really understand. But the 1% haste, that's okay, I guess. Just having passive haste. There's some classes that have passive haste just through like their spenders. Ret Paladins have basically Inquisition from BFA. So every time they use their spenders, they'll generate, or they'll get up like 1% haste per every 1% haste. So for every holy power they consumed, that stacks up to 5. I think that's how it works. So just having by default just extra haste through your normal rotation is pretty nice, but the problem is with the gear you're looking at is not that amazing. There's only 2 pieces you have that are versatility, and the catalyst doesn't come out until like 3 more weeks. I don't know. But your shoulders are good. Haste and versatility, again, that's your main stats. But you look here, like haste mastery, crit haste. Like there's no verse on any of these. Your legs have versatility, but that versatility is really weak compared to the critical strike. So but it's the gear stats themselves and the tier set itself is just really something that doesn't seem worth it to me. But you know what, maybe when I actually get some tier through the vault, I'll see for myself. Stat prio is pretty simple. All right, I hate talking about it because stats are just so boring. They're lame. Nobody likes stats, but I'll talk about it here. Again, agility is your primary, so agility, yeah, it's your default, so you're gonna get agility either way. Versatility, same thing. You're a PvPer. Hopefully you are. If you're a PvEer, please don't subscribe. I don't like you, but you're gonna get versatility and agility by default. Now your secondary stats. What are we looking at here? Your main prio is haste, because haste just smooths out your rotation. Again, you look here, cooldown, cooldown, cooldown. You know, cooldown. Every one of your abilities has a cooldown, so haste just smooths it out, makes enhanced feel really smooth and great. A lot of reasons why, you know, certain enhancement shamans are just having trouble with, you know, with their cooldowns and with their rotation. You know, hey, Storm Strike is on cooldown all the time. It's because they don't have a lot of haste. Haste just, you know, is just by default something that smooths out rotation. And with enhancement shaman, it's increased by 100% because other classes don't share the same cooldown base that we do. So haste is just extra important for enhancement shamans. Now, what do you do when you can't get haste? Or of course, with any stats, you want to find that balancing point between your prio haste and your second prio haste. So your second secondary, is a little bit interesting. It's honestly either two ways. So crit and mastery kind of go hand in hand. I always say go mastery first. Crit is like kind of whatever, but honestly, they're both not bad. So mastery, you read it here, it gives you an increased chance to proc Wind Fury and Stormbringer, and causes you to deal additional Fire, Frost, Nature damage by 18%, or whatever your mastery is. And Stormbringer is obviously your chance to, you know, get Storm Strike resets through special attacks. So your, you know, Storm Strikes, your Crest Linings, Ice Strike, stuff like that. But your crit is just crit. Like, you know, when you get crits, they're going to be a lot bigger. So I always went mastery for just, you know, the little bit of increased chance to get Wind Fury and Stormbringer. But it's one of the it's one of those percentages where no matter how much you try to increase it, it's still going to be very small. It's just by default a small percentage. So really stacking mastery for that specific reason is not that great. And even when you take you know, like mastery type stuff, like 22%, you know, from all my other mastery pieces is you know, not something that's like super amazing. So I'm going for crit right now because a lot of my pieces do have crit, like my weapons, my helmet, you know, so I am taking a bit of crit. And when you are getting crits, it felt a lot better before because Elemental Blast crits were always just nice no matter what spec you were. However, obviously that's nerfed, so now Elemental Blast crits are just kind of not as amazing. So, but when you do get Storm Strike crits, and obviously when the stars align, and when you have stuff like your Converging Storms buff, your Legacy of Frost Witch, maybe if that's even up, your Feral Spirits, which are always going to have up, when the stars align and you just have all your buffs lined up, you're hitting around like 70k Storm Strikes crits. I think my highest Storm Strike on a target was like 85k in arena, so it was just massive, and I'm pretty sure it was against Unholy DK, so it just made it that much better. It was amazing. So I'm currently stacking crit, and I think I'm still testing. So when we get full conquest and I really get to see what my stats are looking like, I'll have a better defined answer. But crit and mastery, you know, haste is your prio, but crit and mastery, you can decide which one you like. But I'm currently going crit. So tips and tricks are next. There's not really a whole lot to talk about here because there's not really there's one reason why I just don't like Enhancement Shaman, and it's the fact that there's just no outplayability with Enhancement. Kiting does not exist in this world. Outplayability does not exist in this world. You don't have stuff in your toolkit to outplay, you know, certain people. All you can do is just go in and zug. That's all you do. But there's certain stuff that you should know about Enhancement Shaman that'll just help you out better. Is one of them being, how do you set up your stuns? A lot of people say, you know, Enhance has weak CC, which it does. I can't land my stuns. It's an easy way to land your stuns. You cap totem and you sundering into that. A lot of people use sundering at very awkward times. You can't do that. Even if Storm Strike is on cooldown and you have no other buttons to press, people press sundering. You should not do that. Sundering is a big ability. Why? Because I don't know if it's guaranteed, but obviously Wind Fury generates from any of your abilities. So, but for some reason Sundering has just procced all the time. So I'm not saying it's 100% proc chance, but it could be. So Sundering is good for so many reasons. He not only just does a lot of damage, but it incaps people for 2 seconds. So the way you set up your CC is just how I showed you. You cap totem and you Sundering so they can't kill your cap totem. So that's how you get guaranteed stuns. Or if you really wanted to, you could just Static Field Totem and then go into a Capacitor Totem if you really wanted to. But Static Field Totem is really good in its own right. So like you could just do this if you really wanted to. That's also going to be a guaranteed stun because you have to target 2 totems. But I mean, Static Field Totem has its own uses outside of just setting up your capacitator stun. So that's why I don't really use it as much. But Sundering is really good for not only landing kills, but it's also just good for setting up CSC and just for damage. But you do not use it for rotation. Do not use Sundering when you're getting your damage out like this. I'm performing my normal rotation. I'm not going to press Sundering here because Sundering is too valuable to use it for just pure damage. You're either using it to set up your CC with your cap totem, or using it to finish off somebody when they're like 20% HP to get that in cap stun, and hopefully you have something like an Elemental Blast or a big Storm Strike ready, or else they're most likely gonna live. But that's how you use Sundering. You can't use it for rotation or anything like that. A lot of people use it. I see so many videos of people just throwing a Sundering out there for no reason, which sometimes it's it's okay because it does have a short cooldown, 40 seconds. But when it's off cooldown, when it's on cooldown when you really need it, it just feels so bad. So repeat after me. Use Sundering, or I'm gonna use Sundering to set up my cap totem stun, or use it to secure a kill. Only 2 times you use it. You're not using it for rotation. You're not using it for damage. You're using it for those 2 reasons. All right. Good job. Another big problem with Enhancement Shaman is living openers. Openers is the toughest thing for Enhancement Shaman. So, when you can survive that opener, obviously it's going to be smooth sailing for you. So how do you live openers? Well, it's not simple, but it is simple in the sense of like what you need to do. So by default, you're taking Earth Elemental. So anytime I'm engaging with somebody, let's talk about a non-stealth scenario. Let's say I just use Earth Elemental. I got my Frail Spirits out. This is what I'm doing in the opener. I got my Earth Elemental and my Frail Spirits out. Why? Well, Earth Elemental for just passive 15% increased maximum health. Very good. But my Frail Spirits are out to generate me Maelstrom Weapon. So if I get stunned and I didn't really need to press wall, or I don't have my BM trinket, at least I'll have a heal out when I get out of that stun. So again, your Maelstrom generation is just gonna it's gonna be nice. You're gonna get your Legs to Frostwitch stacks, kind of ramping up. So it's gonna help you out for future damage setups. Very nice. But let's say that's pretty much all you're doing. If you use your wall in the opener, you're fucked. Which unfortunately you have to 90% of the time. So what do you do to prevent that? Well, your Earth Elemental and you BM. I really should be hitting the target dummy to really showcase the max HP I have, but you're going to be having almost 500k HP, 400, let's say 450k I think is what you're looking at when you have your Earth Elemental or your BM trinket on. So the reason why you have these 2 trinkets, you have your Earth Elemental for 50% increased HP, your Battle Masters for 90,000 HP that you get from it. The reason why these are so important is because when your HP is just so high, you can sit on your wall for now. You don't really have to worry about your HP too much. So during that opener, all you're really trying to do is living. You're not trying to do damage, which of course you want to do damage, but that's not your main prio. Your main prio is living. And when you can live, their cooldowns, then that's when you can be on the offensive and force their cooldowns with your burst. So if you're not giving your opponent your wall, especially as Enhancement Shaman, it feels amazing because it just gives you like another ability to combat, you know, your future encounters in that arena. It feels really nice. But obviously when your wall is just, you know, just blown in the opener, again, you're really fucked. Especially when you get stunned and you have nothing to get out of that stun, or you have nothing that you can use to really, you know, when you're out of that stun, it just feels really bad. So, you know, saving your wall is one of the greatest things that you can do as Enhancement Shaman. Now, there are certain scenarios when maybe you want a wall in the opener, because BM Trinket itself is really good. BM Trinket helps when you get locked out of your spell school, and when you're locked, you can't use Healing Surge. So when you're running low on health and mana, BM Trinket, just extra 90,000 K HP, is going to help you sometimes. But again, it depends on the comp and what you're facing, where getting locked out is a really big problem. Let's say against, you know, Shadow Priest, when you're getting you know, if you get blanket silenced, you know, especially during that opener, like, and you can't heal at all. So are you gonna have to give up your wall, or you're gonna have to use your BM Trinket? You make the decision. Both are gonna have significant consequences. So it's really just pick your poison, and you just hope for the best later on in the arena. So something I don't like talking about, because it's always the same answer as it was every other expansion. It's your comps, 2v2, 3v3. It's the same thing as it is every other expansion. Ret Warrior. I've been watching too much of my friend who plays Ret Warrior all the time. It's Ret Enhance or Warrior Enhance. And that's all you're really playing, because Shamans or Enhancement Shamans don't work well with casters. They work really poorly with casters. And you don't really work well with melee that are passive, kind of wait and see what happens. So you only really work well with melee that can just jump in and just start gunning people. That's all you can really work with, because as Enhancement Shaman, you know, Ret Paladin and, you know, Warrior has always been the two classes that synergize with you the most. You know, in terms of utility, you have stuff like Sack and Bop through Paladins, and you have stuff like Intervene through a Warrior. And your burst combined with Paladin Enhance and, you know, Warrior Enhance are always kind of like neck and neck, and always on the same in terms of how much pressure you can get out. So that's why they really worked. Those two comps really work together. You could say, like, well, if you're saying Zug comps, what about DH? DH is interesting because all you really have, like, Darkness. That's really it. And, you know, for specific talking about, like, you know, utility for myself, Big Tuna, Darkness is really good, but is that really going to outweigh stuff like Intervene or Blessing of Sacrifice, Bop? No. And in terms of just kill pressure and damage, again, Warrior and Enhance is always just synergized well, and Turbo is always going to be like the best. Ret Enhance is going to be like your second go-to, but Warrior Enhance is always going to be like what you're really looking for. And no, I always get asked questions about this. Does Enhance work with healers? Can Enhance work with healers now? No, it does not work with healers. It does not work with healers. I personally don't like playing with healers, but in terms of actual viability, it still does not work well with healers. Again, the main two aspects you need to make a healer DPS comp is that your DPS needs to have good solo survivability and needs to have good solo kill potential. Your healer needs to have good support to help kill. So stuff like CC setups or stuff like just damage on their own. And when you don't have that, you don't have a healer DPS comp. So Enhance doesn't have either of those. It does not have good solo survivability. If my healer is stunned and I don't really have that much to respond to, I'm screwed. And I don't have good solo kill potential. I can still do a lot of damage, but can I really kill on my own? Not really, you know, not really. So Enhance never really does work well with healers at all. So 3v3s, the healers you're looking for are not the healers that just, like I said, can help you set up kills. So, I mean, my personal favorites is if I'm playing with let's say you know, what I usually want to play is, you know, Enhanced Warrior, Turbo. I usually look for either H-Pals or R-Druids. Those two really work well. R-Druids are amazing for, you know, just R-Druid healing is just the best. So it's same. It's a neck and neck with evokers, but I haven't really played too much with evokers, so I can't really give too much detail on that. But you know, our druids have always just been that great. Stuff like roots and Ursol's Vortex, if they are taking it, are just help me as Enhancement Shaman. One of my biggest weaknesses is mobility. So just having those two utilities like constant roots and of course helping handle CC of just constant clones on whoever needs to be cloned is really nice, because again I struggle with CC and mobility. So having that kind of anti-mobility with the Aura Druid and the extra help of CC is really nice. Same thing with Holy Paladin, blind into Hodge, and just normal healing with Holy Paladin. And if you're not playing with Ret Paladin, your Holy Paladin's gonna have sack, bop, lay on hands, stuff like that. So definitely very nice. And of course your Holy Paladin can help kill, especially if they are running melee wings. So that's usually what I want to see in a healer, is a healer that can help kill and a healer that can help finish off people. So Holy Paladin and Aura Druid are two that can do that very well in their own rights. Now I'll talk about macros. Macros and add-ons, I guess, is what this last segment is. I don't care about this stuff because I don't have any macros or add-ons that are like really game changing and are really like you need this for arena or else you're not going to survive. I'm not a little geek, but I get constant questions about it, so I'm going to say anyway. Macros, I only use two types of macros. I use @cursor macros for stuff like my totems. So again, you see me every video. I don't have let me just get a totem out here. I don't have this bullshit, this malarkey little icon here. Why? Because it gives me a carpal tunnel every time I need to place it. Constantly placing totems just is not good. So having @cursor macros just instant place instant place your totems without having to click them is really good. So @cursor macros, where is it at? Copy right there. Very nice. And the only other macros I use is mouse over macros. So mouse over help and harm is what I always use. So instead of just clicking to target everybody, I can just hover over their stuff or hover over their character like this guy, and I can just give him Earth Shield. So let's see, like this DK here, I can just give that guy Earth Shield without needing to target him. Very nice. And then mouse over harm for like stuff like my wind shear. Wind shear, where's it at? Wind shear. Mouse over harm at target, or of course if you're set focus macro, slash cast at mouse over harm no dead at focus target is something I also use, but I mainly only use mouse over harm and mouse over help macros combined with @cursor macros, which I will say, if you are going to use @cursor macros, you make sure you have a as enhancement, whether you use them or not, whatever. You should have a weak aura like this, a mouse cursor weak aura, because when you're using cursor macros, sometimes a lot of stuff happens on your screen. Let's say DKs have A-bomb limp, there's darkness on your screen, priests have dome, like there's a lot of cluster abilities in the game. So when you can't find your cursor, it's just nice to have like this kind of like dot or like pretty big circle that will just, help you out, help your eyes out, because your eyes are traveling at the speed of light when you're a gamer, looking at every single corner, every single inch of your monitor. So having the cursor is definitely very nice, very amazing. And then add-ons, again, I don't like talking about this, but add-ons that are I constantly get questions about. I'll briefly talk about them. Unit frames is what I always use for my unit frames. It gives it a bit more life. You can add additional information on them. So compared to like your standard UI, you can add stuff like your own debuffs or your own buffs, in the sense of you can kind of highlight your buffs or debuffs on the target. So if I'm I'm in combat with somebody, my flame shock is going to be highlighted and it's going to be bigger than let's say someone like another shaman's flame shock, just to signify that that's my flame shock, that's my debuff on the target. Same thing with buffs. If my Riptide is on somebody, it's going to be highlighted, so that's my Riptide on this target, and I can see when it falls off, just to help my eyes a little bit better. Weak auras, obviously you want to use weak auras. Neat plates I just use because it looks nicer than standard Blizzard nameplates, but the one I will always suggest is nameplate cooldowns. This is hacks. It's hacks but legal. Nameplate cooldowns tracks your enemies' cooldowns. They're trinkets. Obviously, there are some better stuff like having like Omni Bar or like other stuff out there, but nameplate cooldowns is for like lazy people like me. So it'll showcase their cooldowns. They're trinket. They're infernal. They're when their wings are going to come up. All right, it's literally hacks, but legal. So nameplate cooldowns, definitely want to have that. And then this stuff like Gladius, like I'm pretty sure you guys know what this is. Gladius is just a certain arena frames. So again, also tracks up trinket, or their human racial, or their adaptation, whatever stuff they're running. And then the one I will say is crosshairs. This is the question. This is the comment I get literally 90% of the time. It's crosshairs. What is that add-on that makes that, you know, gives it the sniper look right here? It's crosshairs. Go download it. It's amazing. It looks cool, and it does help you a little bit. It helps me focus on my target. You know, when I'm like over here for some reason and like I can't see where my target is, my crosshair will kind of just help me a little bit. So yeah, that's my add-ons. Man, oh man, my voice is tired. I need to go work out, rest, and probably jack off. But the video is now over. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. If you have any questions that I just didn't really, you know, go over, or if you have anything, need any bit of clarification that was a little bit scratchy in this video that I just didn't cover super well, again, leave it in the comments and I will try to answer it to the best of my abilities. But guys, the video is over. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. Links in the description if you want to see more Big Tuna, and make sure to like, subscribe, comment with notifications on, because I do try to upload every single day at 3 p.m. Hopefully you all had a wonderful day, and I'll see you guys in the next life. Peace.